Welcome to Basic Brewing Video. I'm James Spencer. This past weekend I got to spend the day with Andy Sparks and Dave Johnson as they played with one of Andy's new toys, a pressure cooker. Now, Andy was using the pressure cooker to can jars of wort for use in starters later on. Now, the advantage to using a canning system to sterilize your wort is that you can keep this at room temperature for an indefinite period of time until you get ready to use it. Now, we talk a lot about this on this week's episode of Basic Brewing Radio, so you want to check that out at basicbrewingradio.com or subscribe to us on iTunes. Until then, take a look at this.
I'm planning to do a lot of brewing this fall, and one of the things that I'd like to be able to do is make the whole process of getting my starters together and underway as fast and as efficient as possible. So my idea is that if I have some canned, sterile wort around, I'll be able to make starter cultures fairly easily. For the starter, I want something fairly clean. I don't want the starter to add much flavor to any finished beer that I'm getting ready to make. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it with the base malt that goes in most beers, just a simple 2-row base malt. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple brew in the bag technique today, where we simply get some water hot, put the bag in there, fill the bag with our grain, and let it steep for about an hour. Pull the grain bag out. We'll simmer that for 15, 20 minutes, an hour. And then we'll put that in the canning jars and proceed to sterilize it in the canner. I think we can just let it drain in here and recoup what's left later.
Sure. Into the colander.
I usually try to hit around 1040. That seems to be a nice kind of middle of the road gravity. It's not too big, not too small. And it seems to be kind of the standard for making starter worts. So that's kind of what I'm shooting for today. You need to sterilize your wort so that it can last for a while. You're preserving your wort for time, some amount of time. You could probably, at the end of a batch of beer, simply put some of your wort, because it's basically sterile at the end of your boil, and you could put that in the refrigerator and keep it for a couple weeks, But much longer than that, it's probably not going to last, and it'll probably start to, go bad. If you want it to last much longer than that, you're going to need to sterilize the wort, and you'll need to do that with a process, a canning process, and that's one of the things we're going to work on today. Hey, Dave?
Well, we're worried about any organism. Wort is a very good growth medium. It has your sugars for metabolism, plus a lot of nutrients. So anything in the wort has the potential to grow. So what we want to do is make sure there's no organisms in the wort to grow, because they proved a long time ago that you have to have life to get life. So if you start with no life, you don't have to worry about anything growing. Simple as that. In the realm of liquid sterilization, we're complicated. We're complicated by the fact that the entire solution has to reach sterilizing conditions. We're not dealing with the solid, we're dealing with the liquid. So every molecule in the liquid, more or less, has to reach a sterilizing environment. Whereas with a solid, we're only worried about the outside. Only the outside has to reach those sterilization parameters in order to be considered sterile. So we have to consider warm-up time, and we have to consider volume. The more volume we have, the longer it's going to take. And there's even a third one that we have to consider. We have to consider starting temperature. If you take wort that is prepared freshly, i.e. boiling water added to it and mixed up, and hey, it's more or less around 200 degrees when it goes into the sterilizer, well, it's not going to take as long to warm up to 250 degrees for its sterilization. What I would recommend is utilizing a very simple process known as overkill. Go a little longer.
That should do.
Water more or less regulates itself by boiling off. A process called evaporative cooling. As the water turns into steam, it takes energy away from the water, so the water is going to stay at 212 degrees and not get any hotter.
There we go.
But if you add pressure to the equation, you can increase the temperature of the water significantly. For residential sterilizers and pressure cookers, that temperature is pretty much 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And the pressure would be around 15 psi.
The canner that I have will hold 7 quart jars. So what we should end up with is 7 beautiful quart jars all in a row on the counter that I'll actually be able to store at room temperature until I need them for a couple years easy. And this will mean I'll simply be able to take the yeast out of their fridge, let it come to room temperature, and basically get going. And so it should make that part easier and allow me to kind of do more faster this fall.
Come and visit us on the web at basicbrewing.com. You can find archived lists of both our audio and video podcasts on home brewing. You can also find our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, Introduction to Wine Kits. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Write to James at basicbrewing.com, Steve at basicbrewing.com, or just use the contact form on basicbrewing.com.
That we're starting to